Okay, so Casey, Joyce, and I attended annual conference this past weekend, and a little blurb about what annual conference is a meeting of clergy and lay in the conference, and there are several conferences within the United Methodist Connection, and we are in the upper New York Connection. At these meetings, we pass a budget, we pass recommendations for pastors' compensation, receive reports from agencies, a review and vote on resolutions and petitions, and also have an educational component. So what are the highlights and lowlights? There are lowlights, believe it, but there are many, many more highlights, particularly recently. The bishop gave opening remarks, and they were similar to his Episcopal address, which was given the next day. And the theme of the conference was Forward, Claiming God's Future and Hope and Joy. And he talked about prioritizing relationships, the importance of investing in young people, expanding ecumenical and interfaith partners. We are stronger together. Okay. The commissioning and ordination service and sermon was presided by Bishop Tracy Smith Malone, who was from East Ohio, and she is just voted the president of the Council of Bishops. There was nobody ordained this time, but I'll get back to that in a minute. But her sermon was based on the joy of hope. I never thought of hope being a joy, but I'm learning new things all the time. Her text was from Ephesians 1, and a quote from her sermon: fear, quote, fear, division, and hatred tear at the very fabric of our culture and world. Our society is increasingly becoming more racially divided, violent, and unjust. Political and cultural worlds have us anxious, fearful, and suspicious of one another. We can't afford not to be bold. Bold in our witness, be committed building the beloved community. So at the end of her sermon, she commissioned 4 candidates. Nobody was ordained this year. The commission means that they are in the process of becoming ordained. So in 3 years, after they have written all their papers and jumped through all the hoops, they will be ordained, hopefully in 3 years. One of them that was ordained was a man by the name of Daniel Mohammadazadeh. He is from Iran, and he is the first person from the Middle East that has been, he hasn't been ordained yet, been commissioned, first one commissioned from the Middle East. And at the end of the commissioning, he gave a little story about his journey coming here. He apparently was a very long journey, and he talks about all the children in the Middle East, and particularly in Iran, how they really want peace. So the next education was by Dr. Ashley Bogan, who was General Secretary of the Commission of Archives and History, and she gave a very, very interesting stories on John Wesley. And her text was from Philippians 3. We need to move forward knowing our history, holding ourselves accountable, but seek never to repeat. Early days of Methodism, as you all know, we've been told this before, was a very derogatory term. Being a Methodist was very derogatory. They were ridiculed, they were considered superstitious prophets and shameless dividers and madmen. I hope we're a little bit better than that now. All right, so one of the resolutions that was passed 2 years ago was the Buffalo 10 Scholarship. And this was, remember the Tops Massacre, where several African Americans were murdered. And at that time, Scott Johnson, Reverend Scott Johnson, actually Dr. Scott Johnson, had a resolution whereby we would support scholarships for youngsters or for young people in the surrounding zip codes. And this is what part of your Engage Fund donation goes for, is to help support young people who apply for these scholarships. And there were 3 of them, 2 of them from last year and 1 from this year, that had received scholarships, and they gave a little presentation about how it has helped them in their education. Also, an interesting note that I found out was Buffalo is the 7th most segregated city in the United States. I didn't realize that, the 7th. Okay, few of the lowlights. 118 churches disaffiliated, most in the Western New York State, which is that they were the small churches. And 10 were closed, and 1 was Portlandville, which was right near us. Okay, never end a report on a lowlight. So, highlight. So, final highlight is young people. More young people at this conference than over 5 years. And this is one of the goals of this new bishop, is to really get young people more involved. And you could see that with the tables that were filled with the young people. J.J. Warren, I think the time of J.J. Warren is the last time that we really had young people involved at the conference. 4 youth who went on a mission of peace to Puerto Rico gave a presentation, and 2 youth, very brave youth, spoke of importance of life and the importance of youth being involved in the life and decisions of the church. So, what's the takeaway message? Move forward with joy and hope, with younger people contributing more.